Hey guys, what's going on? Jeb here, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a little bit more technical analysis on Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency markets, and more specifically, we need to start the video off by discussing this pattern that Bitcoin has found itself in here for the last couple of weeks. Bitcoin currently finds itself in an ascending triangle pattern with a level of support right there, and a horizontal level of resistance right there. Added on to that, as we discussed in yesterday's video, is this crucial downtrend that if Bitcoin breaks, could be the beginning of a bump and run reversal pattern, which could bring Bitcoin up to price targets around $7,000. Bitcoin is in a very important decisive point on the short-term time frames, but likewise, Bitcoin is in a very important and very decisive point in the entire history of Bitcoin, especially for the last couple of years. Because if Bitcoin does break bullish here and starts moving towards $6,000, especially if Bitcoin breaks this, we're likely about to see a bull market form, guys. There is a pretty decent chance, I'm not saying it's the majority chance, but there's probably a 20 to 40% chance that we see a bull market start in Bitcoin in the next month. This is a very crucial point for Bitcoin. We're probably about to see a breakout within the next week on the shorter term time frames, as we'll discuss, and we're also likely to see some kind of major market defining move happening here over the next month. We're going to be discussing both of those concepts in today's video, as I believe they are both extremely important to our trading and also likewise our investing. After that, we have a news article coming from a fellow named Andrew Yang. Of course, he didn't write it, Mitchell Moose wrote it, but this fellow named Andrew Yang is a presidential candidate for the United States of America, and he recently came out as a pro-cryptocurrency campaign candidate. I'm very happy to hear this. We're going to be discussing this a little bit later on, and I have a lot that I want to talk about with this as it relates to U.S. politics and as it relates to the adoption of Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency markets, so make sure you watch on for that. And also, I want to give you guys a bit of an update on Bakkt, as Bakkt was supposed to launch something like 4 months ago, still isn't here. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in today's video. Anyway, guys, if you do enjoy today's video, definitely consider dropping a like, hitting that subscribe button, and smashing that notification bell, guys. I do hope you enjoy the video. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into it, guys. Bitcoin is currently trading around $5,244.52. And like I said, Bitcoin finds itself at a very crucial point in its history. Is Bitcoin going to break up and start a bull market from here? Or is Bitcoin going to break down and delay that bull market for a little while? I do still think it's coming in 2019, just about no matter what happens to Bitcoin. But this is what we're looking at, especially this ascending triangle pattern. I'm going to move this downtrend for just a second. We'll come back to that in a minute. But Bitcoin finds itself in this ascending triangle pattern right here. And as we can see, Bitcoin actually broke bullish a couple days ago and is trading against a level of resistance now. As I've talked about in many videos in the past, whatever trend line Bitcoin or a market is trading against, it's more likely that Bitcoin is going to break that one. So for right now, it's more likely that Bitcoin is going to break resistance, seeing that it's trading against that resistance. Guys, it's much easier for Bitcoin to come up here and move upwards 0.5% and then test that and then maybe break it than it is for Bitcoin to fall over, go through all that support and through all those buy orders and then break Bitcoin down below this level of support. It's much easier for Bitcoin to break upwards right now, but of course that can change. And guys, why I say that we're going to see a breakout in the next week or so is because this is going to be ending within about a week. If we look here, today is currently the 19th of April. This is only going to last about another 8 days, this ascending triangle pattern, and it's very unlikely that Bitcoin's going to run all the way through it up to the very end and then break out. That does sometimes happen, but guys, normally a consolidation pattern like this ascending triangle pattern does constitute a consolidation pattern. Typically, these are going to break out somewhere between 50 and 80% of the way through them. That's somewhere around the range that I've heard. I've heard people be more specific and say between 60 and 70% is where the breakout will occur. I like to be a little bit more lenient and a little bit more liberal with our predictions and say in between about 50 and 80% of the way through the consolidation pattern, you will see the breakout, because by that time we've had the trend lines established. We know where they are. We know what Bitcoin is doing in relation to them, and more than likely we're ready to see a breakout. Guys, I think within the next week, and more specifically probably within the next 3 to 4 days or so, Bitcoin is going to see a breakout. I think that's pretty certain. More of the question is, which direction is Bitcoin going to break out? And that's what I want to also discuss in today's video. Let's go ahead and back out to the 4-hourly chart and get that downtrend of resistance that I just got rid of back up. If you guys watched yesterday's video about the bump and run reversal pattern, you guys will see that I talked about in that pattern, I talked about in that video how Bitcoin has gone through all of the phases it needs to. All Bitcoin needs to do right now is break bullish, and then if we don't come back down below the level of resistance at the moment, at the time it would be level of support. If we don't fall back below this downtrending level of resistance, then we are in a bump and run reversal pattern, and Bitcoin should be moving up to the upside. Now, one thing I want to make clear, by the way, is that several people in the comment section down below yesterday pointed out the strength of $6,000, how powerful $6,000 is. I even saw one person actually reiterate, without knowing they were reiterating, what I said in yesterday's video, that $6,000 is perhaps one of the most important support and resistance levels in the history of Bitcoin. I want to make myself very clear with what I said in yesterday's video. While the price target of this bump and run reversal pattern is $6,800, and while I did discuss the potential of Bitcoin going to $6,800, I think I perhaps should have made it even more clear than I already did. I talked about this for like 3 or 4 minutes at the end of the video. Perhaps I should have put that at the beginning of the video so everyone saw it. I'm not predicting that Bitcoin goes to $6,800. I'm simply saying that the prediction of the bump and run reversal pattern is that Bitcoin goes to $6,800. Those are two very separate things. If Bitcoin breaks out here, I'll tell you my prediction on this, and this is relevant to today's video, so continue listening. If Bitcoin breaks bullish out here and goes to $6,000, that is where we're going to see massive resistance. And as people point out in the comment section, if we go to $6,000, it's unlikely we're just going to break straight through it. We're probably going to come up here and test that as a level of resistance for a long time, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month. It may take a while. The further away we get from 2018, the less important $6,000 is, but it's still a very important level of resistance that Bitcoin is going to have to test if Bitcoin is to go up here to the actual target of the bump and run reversal of $6,800. Now, with all that said, let's go ahead and discuss what Bitcoin is likely to do here over the next couple of weeks. Over the next couple of days, excuse me. Is Bitcoin likely to break bullish, or is Bitcoin likely to break bearish? Well, guys, I've talked about the bullish scenarios, and I've talked about the bearish scenarios. I'm going to quickly run over them. I'm going to omit some technical indicators, but I do want to bring about and show you guys several of them. One of the technical indicators I want to show you guys has to do with the RSI out here on the daily chart. Bitcoin does still have this uptrend of support here on the RSI. Let's go ahead and make that the right color, and as we can see, Bitcoin's RSI is generally trending to the upside. With that said, Bitcoin must break bullish out here, or we're going to break this trend. If Bitcoin does not break bullish out here, Bitcoin is going to break this trend on the RSI and will start heading to the downside. This trend has been in place since November of 2018. This trend is 5 months old here on the daily chart, and if it is broken, it's likely going to bring massive bearishness. So if Bitcoin does break bearish here, I want you to understand that with the RSI like this and with the weekly stochastic RSI, which I'll show you in a minute, if Bitcoin does break to the downside here, we're probably going straight to $4,000. There's not a whole lot of support in between where we are now and there. It is very possible that if we stop at $4,800 and other support levels I've discussed, but based on the RSI on the daily chart, and as I'll show you here in just a second, based on the stochastic RSI on the weekly chart, if we break bearish, it's going to be big. Now, as you can see, stochastic RSI here on the weekly chart is still very overbought, sitting up here at 100. If Bitcoin breaks bearish, as the stochastic RSI is predicting it should, it will result in a major downtrend. With all that said, I do also want to point out some other things in relation to moving averages. If we look at our moving averages here on the daily chart, we see that we're about to see a golden cross on Bitcoin, or likely we're going to see one. This can obviously, we can obviously see the 50 do something like that and them not actually cross. That's unlikely. We're most likely going to see a cross here unless Bitcoin does just jump off a cliff and then we don't see the cross. And I want people to understand that while, yes, the last time we saw a golden cross on Bitcoin, it was the beginning of a Bitcoin bull run. Let's go ahead and look back in time here on the BLX chart. The last time we saw a golden cross on Bitcoin, it was the start of a bull run. That is very true. I also want to point out that before that, we saw a golden cross, but before we saw that golden cross kick off a bull market, we also saw a golden cross back over here, and this was not indeed a bull market. And if you were trading just off of that golden cross, it was not a bull market. You would have been sad when Bitcoin started falling over. So just because we're seeing that golden cross doesn't mean the bull market is starting tomorrow, but it does probably mean that we're going to see one within the next 6 months, as I've discussed in previous videos. This is a bullish scenario. If Bitcoin does have a golden cross here, this probably will lend to short-term bullishness and may be the catalyst that we can use to break Bitcoin to the upside and start moving towards price targets of maybe $6,000. But like I've said also, guys, you have to remember that RSI figure that we talked about, and especially that stochastic RSI figure on the daily chart, on the weekly chart, are very important, and they are calling for not necessarily bearishness on the RSI's part, but they are a catalyst that could help Bitcoin move to the downside. Guys, based on the technical analysis I've done in many other videos, and based on some technical analysis that I simply don't have time to get to in today's video, and also especially based on the market sentiment, here's what I think is going to happen to Bitcoin. Where Bitcoin is right now, it looks like Bitcoin is going to break bullish. With that golden cross coming up with other bullish indicators, like I said, I don't have time to get to all of them because we do still have news. And I don't want this to be an hour-long documentary on Bitcoin for one day of price action. If Bitcoin does break bullish here, I think it's going to break bullish. it's probably not going to run very far. I think the bulls are exhausted. If they weren't, we would have already broken bullish by now. If the bulls weren't exhausted, why did this breakout not bring us all the way up to $6,000? Why did we fall over? That being said, you can use the same argument for the bears. Why did this breakout here to the downside not push us to the downside even more? Why did we not crash way down to like $4,000? There's a very good argument to be made on both sides, but based on the sentiment, based on the fact that we're in an ascending triangle pattern, based on how exuberant people are, based on how much volume is going on in the market, that's one thing I can show you real quick, is that volume has in general been trending to the downside. That does actually indicate that there is some kind of breakout coming. If we look here on the daily chart, we can see that volume has very clearly been moving to the downside. When all of these things come together, they tend to indicate that we're going to see some kind of breakout on Bitcoin, probably a pretty big one. And I do think, based on all of our TA, that Bitcoin is going to break to the upside. Now, before we wrap that technical analysis portion up, how far to the upside? Because that's the question. If Bitcoin breaks to the upside, it could break all the way up to $5,400, the insane price target of $5,400, or Bitcoin could break all the way up to $6,000. So what is it? How far will Bitcoin break? I think, personally, that Bitcoin, and I've been saying this before, I said this about this breakout, and it came true. I said that I thought Bitcoin was going to have a small breakout and then fall over. And then it just so happened, exactly what I said happened that day. Not exactly how I anticipated it, but that's essentially what happened. I think that what's going to happen here is that Bitcoin's going to break bullish, and it's going to be the final hurrah for the Bitcoin bulls. I don't see Bitcoin going above $6,000, so I would be very careful about buying into medium-term positions right now. Medium-term meaning longer than intraday trading, but holding Bitcoin for a trade, swing trading. I'd be very careful about entering a swing trade position right now because I think we're close to the top. I do think that Bitcoin needs to have a correction. Perhaps some major news story could come out that pushes us above 6K. If we go above 6K, yeah, the bull market's probably started. But I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're ready for that. Maybe the exuberance of getting close to 6K, the magnetism, the gravity of 6,000 will pull us up and through it. Maybe that'll happen, guys. Time will tell. But I think we're close to the top here. I think Bitcoin's going to break bullish, but I think it's going to be short-lived, and then Bitcoin will break bearish, and we'll start a correction that'll last for a couple weeks, and then the Bitcoin bull market will start, because that's what happened in 2015, and that is what the technicals are telling me about this market as well. It seems to be a good way for Bitcoin to start bull markets, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't happen again. So tell me in the comment section down below what you think of that analysis. I think Bitcoin's going to break bullish. I think we'll maybe, at best case scenario, we'll go up to 6K. I don't necessarily think we're going to go that far. I think we might go up to 5.5, maybe up to 6. We'll see. It's hard to put a price target on this because there's so little trading history here on Bitcoin on this time frame and around this level. We do see that there's a level of resistance right here around $5,600. That might be a level. We'll talk about that when the time comes, guys. Tell me in the comment section down below what you think of that TA, and let's go ahead and get on to the news. Now, this is an interesting one. I've been talking about pretty much ever since I got into cryptocurrency, and this is even before I had a YouTube channel. I talked about cryptocurrency so much with the people around me. I talked their ears off when I first got into crypto. I don't talk about it as much now because, honestly, they don't really care and they're not interested in hearing about it. They'll know about Bitcoin when the time comes, and they'll wish they had have listened to me. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. But when I first got into cryptocurrency, and even to today, I've always said that whenever Bitcoin starts to become widely adopted, one of the political parties in the United States of America is going to start picking sides on what side they're going to have for cryptocurrency. One side is going to be pro-crypto, and one side is going to be anti-crypto. That's just the nature of a two-party system in America. And I'm not a very political person, but I'm a rather political person in my personal life. I'm not going to mention any of that in today's video because I don't want a firestorm in the comment section down below. But I do think that Bitcoin is going to become a major political issue. And one thing you kind of see with American politics, and this is important for the cryptocurrency space, I'm not just going off on a tangent. Bear with me here for a minute. One thing that you notice in American politics is that sometimes both sides, the Republicans and the Democrats, the liberals and the conservatives, they just pick a side on something and then that's their side. They defend that side. It's not necessarily because it fits perfectly in with the worldview and the ideology of conservatism or liberalism, or modern day liberalism, not classical liberalism. That is a different thing. Sometimes you see that they'll just pick a side and then they'll say, okay, well, we're for this because the other side is against that. I think that's probably what's going to end up happening with Bitcoin here. And this fellow, Andrew Yang, may have been the progenitor of this, for the Democratic Party being pro-Bitcoin, and then vice versa, the Republican Party perhaps being anti-crypto because the Democrats are for it. Because, of course, with the reality television show that is American politics has to have some kind of conflict or no one will pay attention. Andrew Yang, the 2020 Democratic presidential candidate, has now become the pro-cryptocurrency candidate. Crypto was recently added to his list of platform priorities, joining Yang's push for policies such as UBI, Universal Basic Income, Medicare for All, and human-centered capitalism. I'm going to skip forward through who is Andrew Yang because I don't think you guys care all that much. If you want, you can go and read this article. It is on cryptoslate.com. There are plenty of articles talking about this, as this is a major news story. So go read up on this. I already have, of course, but we don't have time in today's video. Yang on crypto. Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and digital assets were recently added as a priority for Andrew Yang's presidential platform. According to a release on his campaign's policy page, investment in cryptocurrencies and digital assets has far outpaced our regulatory frameworks in the United States. We should let investors, companies, and individuals know what the landscape and treatment will be moving forward to support innovation and development. The blockchain has vast potential. Hearing these 5 words coming from a presidential candidate is major. And while, like I said, I'm not getting into my personal politics at all, if Yang does get into office, I look forward to what he might do for the cryptocurrency space. Will he be very bullish on Bitcoin, and will he help push bills through Congress with his own support? Of course, he can't make a bill, but will he help push bills through Congress and help put certain people on the SEC and other boards like the CFTC that will be pro-cryptocurrency? If we have a pro-cryptocurrency candidate in office this early in the cryptocurrency revolution that we were all a part of, that would be a very big thing. And I'm very happy to see this, and I do like one more thing about this that I really wanted to talk about here, and that is for publicity reasons. Guys, if Andrew Yang gets the Democratic nomination, this is going to be a big deal. Even if he doesn't win the presidency, you guys know John McAfee's been running for president for longer than half of us have been alive, and every time he runs for president, he's talking about something, and people start talking about what he's talking about, and he gets free publicity for basically whatever he wants to talk about. This is the same thing, except I don't think Andrew Yang is as much of a meme lord as John McAfee is, and he might actually manage to get into office. We'll see. Like I said, I'm not getting into politics, but the fact that he is actually running for president and talking about crypto, even though he's not talking about it a whole lot, it's not one of his main policies, but even though he's not talking about it a lot, the fact that it is one of his policies does bring a lot of legitimacy to the cryptocurrency market, and it also does bring a lot of publicity for the cryptocurrency market. Now, one final concluding statement here is that one of the things that this might be concerning about is that if Bitcoin does become a political issue this early on, then we may see a lot of support from the Democratic Party for Bitcoin or for the Republican Party for Bitcoin, whoever decides to do it. But since the two parties in America tend to be polar opposites on just about everything, there's a lot of polarization in America right now, unfortunately. If one of the parties is pro-Bitcoin, the other party is probably going to be anti-Bitcoin, and then whenever that party's in office, that could make for a very, very bad time for the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. This is all a lot of things that we're going to have to discuss and talk about in the future as cryptocurrency becomes more widespread, more well-adopted, more well-regulated. Nevertheless, this is something we're going to have to keep an eye on. But for now, I do like seeing this, at least in the short term. I think this could be a very big thing for the future of Bitcoin, especially since America has such a large portion of the Bitcoin population in it. Anyway, with that all out of the way, let's go ahead and get on to our final news story of today. And that would have to do with Bakkt. Guys, Bakkt is Bakkt, and we've been talking about Bakkt for a very long time. Bakkt was supposed to launch back over here very early on in 2019. I believe the initial launch date was actually in December of 2018. I forget exactly when it was because it's been so long. Bakkt, if you aren't familiar with it, is basically a massive institutional way of trading cryptocurrency. That is way oversimplified. It has to do with futures. I'm not getting into it in today's video. The point is we've been talking about Bakkt for a very long time, and Bakkt is the kind of thing that we do want to see come to the cryptocurrency space, mainly for the publicity. It's not something that's necessary. If Bakkt doesn't launch, it's not a big deal. Bitcoin is probably going to go on a bull market no matter what at this point. It's very likely that Bitcoin is going to do very well just about no matter what happens with Bakkt. But Bakkt being launched would bring more legitimacy to the cryptocurrency market, as this news story from Andrew Yang is doing as well. And it would also allow a lot of people that are in traditional finance markets, they trade in the S&P 500, they trade in stocks, they trade in bonds, they trade in precious metals, they trade in commodities, they trade in whatever. It would bring a lot more legitimacy to the cryptocurrency market and give these people a method to trade in Bitcoin in the cryptocurrency markets without having to go onto these cryptocurrency exchanges, which are unsafe and unregulated. I know you guys can't see me, but I'm using scare quotes. That's what a lot of people think. They're like, oh, Bitcoin, that's scary. Well, if you have something like Bakkt online, then it's going to be a lot easier for them to assuage their fears and trade in Bitcoin, because Bakkt is run by ICE, it's owned by ICE, and it's going to be heavily regulated. Not heavily regulated, but it is going to be regulated as any other traditional finance markets, any other traditional exchanges would be. Anyway, the CEO of institutional investment-focused Bitcoin futures exchange Bakkt, Kelly Loeffler, that was a mouthful, made a post on the firm's Medium blog saying that race day was approaching and that it was waiting, and that Bakkt was awaiting approval from the United States Commodities and Futures Trading Commission. A lot of people back in the day, like 6 months ago, were saying, Bakkt isn't going to need CFTC approval. I remember this. A lot of people were saying, Bakkt isn't going to need CFTC approval. It won't be that big a deal. Bakkt is under ice. They're going to get it really easily. That's not the case. They're still waiting on CFTC approval. When Bakkt didn't launch, they kind of just half mentioned, oh yeah, by the way, we're waiting on CFTC approval, and then continued on with what they were talking about. But it turns out this is the thing that is holding them up. Originally expected to launch in early 2019, so this article says. I think it was in December originally. Bakkt's launch has been delayed several times as it waits for a nod from regulatory authorities, but a launch this year is still expected sometime in late 2019, it is believed. I'm going to go ahead and read this quote from Kelly Loeffler. As we work through regulatory approval, we are mindful that the infrastructure we are building has the potential to create more opportunities for digital assets to grow in relevance and trust by being more secure, investable, and usable. Is that not the most choreographed sentence I've ever read in my life? As a former marathoner, this point in time recalls the stage in the training regiment where you're putting in long runs with your training team. Race day is approaching and there's more work to be done. I'm proud to be going the distance with this growing team and the culture we're building while bringing digital assets to the mainstream economy. Same thing as with the previous sentence. I do like hearing that. I do like hearing that she was a marathoner. She's making analogies. She's making it easier for us to understand this. And guys, I run a business. I run a couple businesses actually that you guys don't know about, and I'm not running anything even close to the size of the CFTC, to Bakkt, that needs something like the CFTC's approval. Running a company that large, especially when it has as wide-reaching implications as the widespread adoption of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, it's a major undertaking. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of people working on this in the CFTC, in Bakkt, in ICE, in other regulatory environments. This is a very big project, and it's not surprising this taking longer than it was originally anticipated. These things do tend to go over budget, and they do tend to go over time. It's not surprising. But when Bakkt does launch, I think it's going to be a bullish thing for Bitcoin. In the moment, people are going to say, oh, well, Bakkt is online. Time to go buy up a bunch of Bitcoin, and it's going to pump Bitcoin's price. But in the longer term, I also think it's going to be bullish for Bitcoin because it's helping to establish that institutional framework that we want to have for the cryptocurrency market. Now, I do prefer for the majority of cryptocurrency trading to remain in the hands of the cryptocurrency market itself. And what I mean by that is traditional cryptocurrency exchanges, specifically decentralized exchanges, so that we can maintain the decentralized feel of the cryptocurrency market. That's literally the core tenet of Bitcoin in the blockchain industry. We want to maintain that. But at the same time, bringing about some institutional and regulatory bringing about an institutional and regulatory environment for the cryptocurrency market would also be a very big deal in bringing about widespread adoption for Bitcoin. So this is a big deal. I do like the fact that Bakkt is still coming. I'm waiting patiently, and so too are all of us. Anyway, guys, like I said, tell me in the comment section down below what you think of the technical analysis for today's video, and what do you think about what we discussed, especially for Andrew Yang here. This is interesting, and if he does actually get the Democratic nomination, I'm interested to see if this is going to be something he talks about, for example, in the presidential debates, if he's going to talk about it in ads. What is he going to do for basically free advertising for the Bitcoin community if he does actually get the nomination, or even before then, before they even go to the DNC? What's going to happen? I'm interested to hear your opinions on this. This is an interesting story that we're definitely going to be following. I do find this very, very interesting. Like I said, it's hard for me not to put my own politics into this, but I think I've done a good job. I think you guys still have absolutely no idea which way I lean, so I'm going to keep it that way. Anyway, guys, I do hope you did enjoy today's video. There is a sale starting on the Cryptocurrency Technical Analysis Academy. I'm actually going to start it tomorrow, though, so watch out for that. I know you guys are looking forward to that. We had like 60 people join during the last sale. It was ridiculous. You guys are loving CT2A. We'll be starting the sale on that tomorrow. Apologies for the delay. We're still working on some things. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I do want to thank each and every single one of you for watching, as always. God, I love saying that. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.